Welcome back to the podcast. Today in the studio, I have my friend Chris Walker. It is so good that you are here in the flesh, and we're celebrating a very momentous day. It is a day that has been in the works for quite a while now. Actually, if we go, well, you take us back because it is the official launch of your first book, The Frequency Error. Congratulations, man.
Thank you, brother. It's good to see it. It's been a journey, to say the least, in creating, and we've been working on it the whole way through. So you've seen it from the beginning, just when I had the idea at the beginning of 2025, and we did that first interview. And gosh, that interview hit really hard, and also I knew there was something important, and almost had almost no idea how to explain it.
Well, I've done a couple of books myself, and we're working with others to bring their experience to life through their words, through their ideas. You were already working on this, though, long before you were like, let's do a book. I mean, I think that's what I want to go back on, is why did you even commit to not just the book, but creating this future in the first place?
Yeah.
Like how did we get to this point in your own journey?
Well, starting in 2021, my business was growing rapidly, and I would have anxiety a couple times a week. And then I would go and make a speech to 500 people and be nervous before I got on stage. And even in other areas of my life, like dating, I would be afraid to go and talk to a girl, or wondering what people are thinking about me, and all these different what I'll call symptoms going on in my life. And so I started to seek out for solutions, and I picked up the most basic journaling routine, where you write down 3 things you're grateful for in the morning, and three of your goals, and 3 things that you're gonna your to-do list of what you're gonna do that day. And over that 3-year period of time, started to evolve it into my own system. And I would map out my ideal life and where I thought I was, and then I would make a plan, and then have a routine that I would do every morning. And 3 years later, I look back, and I was preparing to sell my business. My business was an 8-figure business. It ran without me. I had achieved top 1% health, all these amazing things that have happened in my life. And I look back, and I said, this routine that I was doing in the morning is the reason why I'm here right now, why my life is where it is. Yeah. And then some other things happened. I realized that I just never feel anxiety anymore. I never feel guilty anymore. I never feel frustrated. I never feel stressed. And to me, that felt profound. And then we started to do some research on it, and do some biometric tests, like EEG measurements and HRV measurements and cortisol and blood tests. And it's my measurements are in the top 1% for all these different areas. The people that did my EEG were like, I've never seen anything like this before, in terms of how calm your brain operates.
I'm going to pause you right there, because I think that's so interesting when you think about what you were living, the state that you were living in before you created this routine for yourself. Stress, anxiety, fear. Your body was perhaps in a constant state of fight or flight, correct?
Subtly.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of high performers, it just shows up as inconsistency, and it shows up as when you start to take on more responsibility, or try to do new things, it shows up as symptoms and inconsistency. So it's not like you're having a panic attack every morning.
Right.
It doesn't feel like that.
Yes.
But it's the way I view it is, it's your body sending you signals that there's something go and explore and more.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe a better way when you talk about a high performer, it's inconsistency. So sometimes you might feel extremely high and then it's like a roller coaster. Is it an up and down and now it's more even kill? How would you describe that?
A lot of people confuse this as like feeling good.
Yeah.
Or like
Okay.
having a lot of energy. That's not really where I'm going here.
Sure.
The consistency in your emotional stability, right?
Okay.
The consistency in your ability to think clearly, to trust yourself, to act in consistent elevated behaviors, right? To lead your company, to stay like to do that's what I view as consistent performance.
So that's where you were and where you've come from to get to this point to write the frequency error. The question then becomes, well, what is this idea of the frequency error?
So at a high level, the book, the thesis of the book is that we're going through the third major economic transition in modern history, and that is the transition out of the information era. So what's happening is that a combination of the internet, social media, and now artificial intelligence is making it totally undeniable that knowledge is no longer as scarce as it used to be. There's way more abundance of knowledge, and therefore the premium is coming down on it. And so we can see the signals of that already occurring in the economy, like major 15 or 20% layoffs at tons of publicly traded large companies, Meta, Coinbase, there's Oracle, Salesforce, there's a variety of them, which is, hundreds of thousands of jobs, the knowledge jobs that are no longer in the economy. Major roles like software development, customer service, even entry-level law, those jobs are coming down for the past 3 years since AI was released or became, publicly available at scale. The entry-level job market's the worst it's been in 40 years, and that is because entry-level jobs are the easiest to automate with artificial intelligence. And so we're seeing these signals in the economy that this is not a prediction. This is already in process.
Right.
And then the last part is that there's a global mental health crisis going on. 75% of the global workforce reports consistent stress and intermittent burnout. 75% of all the global workforce, and the reason this is occurring is not because people need a 4-day work week or because they need to meditate for a little bit. It's a structural economic problem, and the issue is that people are participating in the economy in a way that is producing diminishing returns. And so you see it on TikTok all the time. A 25-year-old that's like, I did everything right. I went to college. I'm doing this thing. Now I have a job, and I did everything right, and I'm living paycheck to paycheck, and I can't even afford my groceries, right? And the reason is because people have been trained to follow the rules of an economy that's declining.
Yes.
And so what the book does is it goes back in history, and it demonstrates that this has already occurred several times in history, and the patterns of what happens are exactly the same. And so I'm happy to get deeper into that if you'd like, or go somewhere else.
I want to pause on that just for a second, because if we go back, you said a very important point about there's this mental health crisis. I want to pause there, because if I think about everything that has transpired really since 2020, people are feeling the effects of that experience. And as a result, they're probably feeling unclear. They're feeling a little anxious, to back to your point. How the headlines aren't making it any better. And I guess that's why I feel so strongly about the frequency error, because if you go back in history, if you understand the patterns, then it can also help to provide clarity of what is coming down the pipe. Am I mistaken with this?
Indeed. So many people view this current moment as chaos.
Okay.
And the current sentiment in the media is that AI is going to just take all take everyone's job, and you're not going to have anything to do and live on universal basic income. And the reality is that's not what's going to occur. That's based on all the historical patterns. That is not what's going to happen. And when you understand the historical patterns, it turns from chaos to clarity, and it makes it a very simple way to begin to navigate this with confidence.
Well, and I think that right there is why I can look around and have a lot of hope, because as you have done in the frequency error, I have an understanding of what has transpired before. That gives me peace. That gives me peace of mind. That allows me to provide peace to others around me. Now, people who are watching or listening to this might not have that same perspective, which is why I would like to go down history lane with you a little bit to get some more perspective, because I look at perspective as just context and framing. And you mentioned that we have been here before in different societies and economies. Take us back in time.
Awesome. Okay. So for context, at the moment, it's at the peak. 65% of the global economy is known as a knowledge worker. They make money using their brain, a computer, the information they store in their head, and how they process it. Now, if we go back in history, just a couple of centuries ago, in the year 1800, 90% of the people that participated in the economy worked on a farm.
Okay.
And it's easy to underestimate the skills and the talents that those people had at that time. They could read the weather patterns. They could understand the soil and whether it was ready to be planted or not. These are skills and intelligence that require decades of working on land and understanding. They could read the patterns of an animal to know whether it was going to be sick or not. These are very tangible, valuable skills at that time. And the economy paid a premium for those skills. Now, starting in 1890, they started implementing technology that was starting to automate these types of jobs. The mechanical reaper, the tractor, these mechanical things that could do, what 10 people could do all the time, automated more reliably, and things like that. And over the next 100 years, the amount of people that participated and worked on a farm went from 90% to 4%.
Wow.
Through automation. And so, yes, the people that worked on the amount of jobs that existed that worked on a farm went down, but it's not that everybody became unemployed. What happened is that the value moved, and what happened is that the value that humans had elevated to the next level from pure physical labor on a farm to what they called skilled labor. And the people that succeeded in that economic transition moved from working on farms to working in factories and managing the mass production of the machines. Now, during that transition, and every economic transition, there are people that benefit more and there are people that benefit less. So the people that worked on the farms and they didn't move, what they noticed is that the economies were contracting, that their income was going down, that there were less job opportunities, that it was more competitive, that the societies that organized around a farm began to almost had a catastrophic declines. And people moved into different areas where there were factories. And then, so that was one major economic transition. The people that succeeded elevated to the next level of capacity, moving from physical labor to skilled labor, which is a shift in human economic value at its core.
I want to hit a pause button on this real fast. What happened to those who didn't make that transition, or perhaps they were lagging in that transition from agricultural to industrial?
So what happens is when the value that humans have becomes abundant, the premium on it declines.
Okay.
And it happens slowly and then rapidly.
Yes.
And so what those people notice, it's when you're inside of a transition, it's hard to see what's going on. It feels like a personal problem. It feels like just one business is just struggling or one community is struggling. But when you zoom out, and especially with the context looking back historically, you can see that it was happening across the whole thing, and there was something bigger going on. And so what happens is that the people that are in that transition think that they just need to work harder. So what many farmers did instead of saying I need to shift from being a physical labor worker to a skilled worker, they plant more crops. They apply more of what's always worked, so they're pushing harder into a declining economy, and that is what causes this stress, burnout, mental health type of stuff.
It's interesting as you're going through. We're talking about the farming, the agricultural to the industrial, and we really haven't even got from the industrial to the technological, and yet alone the internet. But I can't help but think it's like, okay, what was going on back then? A big difference is communication. Because as I think about this, I also think about how communication, transportation was changing as well. We look at the railroads; they were being laid around the 1860s because you're talking about farming and all of these new technologies. So it was steam. And then we go right next to the railroad lines, we have the telegraph lines that are being laid. So now, transportation is increasing, the speed of transportation, the speed of communication, and then the telegraph line becomes the telephone line and so forth and so on. But now the way that communication is, everything is almost instant. And how is that affecting people's perceptions of what you described as it can feel chaotic? Because it could have felt like that back then, but communication has also changed the way that we perceive information. We receive information different to what was going on in the 1800s, early 1900s, et cetera.
Same thing with different mediums and different speed and scale.
Sure.
So that the structure is exactly the same. The only difference is the speed and the scale.
Okay.
And so what happens in all of these is that there is so much social inertia to the existing economy that everyone, the information that everyone gets is continue to try to do better at what you're already doing. And so we need to go forward a little bit, but in the current transition, colleges are telling you that you just need to learn more. You just need to go back and get an MBA. If you have more knowledge, you'll be okay. While the premium on knowledge is going down.
Right.
The personal development industry is a $40 billion industry, telling people if you just had more insights, like this new keynote's going to unlock it for you. Here's a new framework to do what you're doing that is providing diminishing returns more effectively, right? So there's a big social inertia on that. All the corporate cultures are saying you just need to go back and learn more. Go get an AI certification. If you just work harder, you'll be rewarded. And so all the inertia is pushing people to fight harder in a declining economy versus take a step back and say, well, what's the bigger picture here?
And I think that's an interesting point, because if you think about the juxtaposition to farming and then the industrial age, and farmers were working harder, they were planting more crops. Industrial age, people were working harder, longer, etc. But the solution, it sounds like, if I think about the farmer, it's essentially letting go to a degree of who they are at that time to see things from a new perspective.
So it's not that all of the things that you've already developed are useless. Yeah. So that's
a great point.
It's a key point, is that when the farmers that moved into the industrial era successfully brought physical endurance, all these different skills that then applied to managing these machines and things like that. So it's not that everything that you have is useless. You take all of that with you, but recognizing that what you have is no longer scarce.
Okay.
And so that's the key point. And so the move is to recognize what is the new scarce premium resource that the economy is going to organize around that is not being automated by this technology. And then once you realize that, then you move to develop that in advance of it being mainstream accepted.
Yes.
And so as we get further from the industrial era to the knowledge era, right? So people successfully moved into factories. In 1940, 55% of the people that participated in the economy worked in a factory. Then, about 20 years later, industrial automation started, programmable automation, machinery, things like that started to automate those skills, and
Right.
those skills are also easy to underestimate from now, but people could read the machine about whether it was going to work or not. They could organize all these people and the production, the materials without computers.
Yes.
Right. So there's actually like really valuable skills that were happening.
Right.
And then this automation started to come. When the automation arrives, for the first several years, it is treated as augmentation, and it's underestimated. And so people see it as they run them in parallel. They have the human workers and then the machines that are, augmenting, taking away little parts of their job that they don't want to do anyway. It's making them more efficient, and then rapidly starts to become a full displacement.
Yeah.
And so the people that recognized during that transition said, hey, these things are going to automate my skilled labor work. And so I'm going to elevate from making money with my muscles to making money with my mind. And I'm going to shift from a factory work or a skilled labor worker to a knowledge worker. And in that, it requires you, because at that point in 1968 or 1970, colleges were not that popular.
Right.
Right? The popular thing was to go to vocational school.
The trades.
The trade schools. And so before, in 1990, it was obvious, like if I want to participate in the economy, I should go to college, right? But in 1970, it wasn't.
Yes.
And so these people needed to, without mainstream acceptance, without social validation, begin to enter a new emerging economy instead of fighting harder in a declining one.
Yeah.
And so that's the consistent pattern.
Well, here's the thing. You said something that if you're watching or listening, I really want you to come back to, and maybe we can expand this further. You said, what has gotten you to this point? It's not a waste.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be the thing that you can continue to build from. So it's not a complete loss. It's actually a foundation for you to go to the next level. Mm-hmm. When we think about that, in your example of going from farming to factory to early computers, and then moving into the internet age, and now the age of AI, you also talked about scarce resources. Mm-hmm. What do you believe will be the scarce resource as we move further into this period of artificial intelligence?
So when we move from the industrial era to the information era between 1970 and 1990, these transitions take somewhere between 10 and 30 years. The scarce resource shifted from this intelligence of how to work with machines and manage mass production and things like that, which was the most valuable thing in the economy at that time. And it moved to the information that you stored in your brain and how you applied it. And that has been the foundation of the economy from 1975 until present day.
Okay.
And so that has been the thing. And then everything else organizes around that. Colleges become popular. People move to cities because they need to work in an office that aggregates the people that have the knowledge. Inside of a city, there's a lot of people, and you can do networking for volume because that's how you get opportunities in 1990, right? There's no social media, there's no internet, so you have to be there to meet people and things like that. And so what's happening, what happens in every transition, is that a technology enters, it changes the supply and demand of the scarce premium resource, aka artificial intelligence has entered. It is increasing the abundance of information. So it means that it's not that what you know isn't valuable. It's just that it's no longer scarce anymore.
Correct.
And when it's no longer scarce, the premium that people will pay for it comes down. That's basic supply and demand that works in every economy. So the premium on knowledge is going down. And so then what you do to figure this out is you look at, okay, what are the things that this automation cannot automate? What do I have as a human that it cannot automate? And when you look
and this
at
is
it
where
deeply,
the value goes up.
This is where you find where what emerges is the new scarce premium resource.
Okay.
And so it's not the resource that is the most philosophically valuable. It is the resource that humans had that is the most scarce and valuable to the economy at that time.
Gotcha.
And so when you look at it deeply, what it is the quality of the human being that is doing the thinking, the deciding, the creating, the leading. Not the information that they have, but the state the things that they bring before they use the information.
That's important. The quality of the human being. What do you mean by the quality and the state of where they are?
So we call it frequency. And frequency as a term is largely misunderstood, right? Everyone listening to this has an assumption about what it means, but if I asked you what does it actually mean, very few people could define it, right? So they have an idea of what they've heard about it, but very few people have created a definition. So here's the definition. Frequency is the power of your subconscious foundation that drives the state of your nervous system before you think or do anything. It is a collection of neural pathways ingrained in your brain that automatically run, set the power of your nervous system, drive the quality of your thinking, the quality and the ability for you to trust yourself, the ability for you to be creative, to have visions, all these capacities. The misunderstanding is that up until this point, people have treated it like a personality trait. Like you're either creative or you're not. You're either a visionary or you're not. You're either you either whatever or you're like a fixed trait. And that was very convenient for the previous economic era. But the reality is that these are capacities that everybody has. It's like your muscle. And so we all, like most of us, we all have muscles, right? The difference is, have you trained the muscle to be strong?
Okay.
Right? And so the comparison that I want to make here is that in the industrial era, the factory workers had an IQ. They had the capacity to do this type of work.
Yes.
But it wasn't economically relevant. So the factory didn't measure the IQ of a factory worker, and they were never driven economically to build these capacities. And what I'm saying for every human listening to this is that we all have these capacities. The economy has not forced us to build these capacities, but we all have them. And so I think that is an amazing insight. And yeah, let's keep going.
And that's where I want to slow down a little bit, because when you share the definition of frequency, you preceded that by saying a lot of people have a lot of different maybe misunderstandings, or if someone's watching or listening and they're thinking, well, this is what I think frequency is. I want to address some of those misconceptions.
Please.
What do you hear when you bring up the word frequency or the frequency error? What do people think it is based upon just their own experiences to this point?
I think that immediately people put it in a mystical or spiritual bucket.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. It's like kind of woo woo.
It's just an automatic sorting function that people use.
Correct. Why? Why do you think that is?
Because historically, a lot of people have pointed to real phenomena in imprecise ways. Sure. And also that the economy has not valued it at the level up to this point. So it seemed like a personal development side quest. Like you go out and do that over here, but that is not economically valuable. And so
you should be learning more, going to school, getting your MBA, accumulating knowledge was the idea.
Exactly. Probably the same way that a factory worker would look at someone in 1940 that was reading a book.
Yes.
It's like the value is in doing these things, right?
Correct.
And so the point here is that developing our frequency is similar to exercise. It is similar to measuring our IQ. Mm-hmm. It is similar to going to college. Yes. Right. So this is not a spiritual endeavor, and I think that is a major breakthrough for people. When I get DMs quite a bit as I've published the book and been defining it, and people are like, I finally get what you mean.
Okay, right? So you have given language definition to what people are experiencing, feeling, perceiving, that it's like, okay, now I get it, now I understand, versus not being able to fully quantify it.
The the framework of how it works
Uh-huh.
is important. The scientific grounding is important. Everything that I'm saying is rooted in existing scientific research. This is not a plan that we're going to go and figure out. That's not a theory. This is proven already in science.
Yes.
So I think those are important.
Well, let's look at the science, because when you were explaining the definition of frequency, and you said we call it frequency, you mentioned the subconscious mind, and that is an area of just personal fascination for me. If I think about my own just journey of life, whenever I was starting to look into the mind and then the subconscious mind, like 95% of what we do runs at a subconscious level that we're not consciously aware of. And whenever I read that, I said, oh my gosh, what am I doing? How am I living that I'm not aware of? That I don't even know why I'm doing what I'm doing. So when we look at the scientific research behind the frequency error, what are you looking into?
So I think the major the major breakthrough is that to be able to go across many domains and connect the dots in ways where people that are super specialized in one domain don't see the whole thing. And so this is pulling on research from neuroscience, performance research, cognitive science, psychology, nervous system research. So there's a variety of different topics, and it works in a pretty simple way.
Well, let's look at like connecting a couple of these domains, because you listed out performance and neuroscience and psychology and nervous system. If we go back to how we started this conversation, you were explaining some nervous system symptoms, like anxiety. What's the connection there to frequency and the nervous system?
So the way that it works is that our brain is automatically wired with dominant neural pathways in our subconscious mind. They run automatically all the time, filtering our experience, and they drive the state and the capacity of our nervous system before we start thinking. And based on the capacity and the state of our nervous system, it determines where all the resources in our body go. Do they go to longevity functions, to regenerate our heart, to digest properly, to sleep properly, to balance our hormones in the right way, for us to be able to think clearly, trust ourselves, be creative? Or are they going to things to make our palms sweat, to raise our heart rate, to cause anxiety or worrying or things like that? And so the big insight here is that all of that occurs before we do think or do anything.
Unconsciously, correct?
Automatically,
Okay.
in milliseconds,
Yes.
without thinking about it.
Right.
And so that process is huge, because everything up into that point now is the most valuable thing. It's setting the capacity so that when you start thinking or doing, there's an increased quality to it. So I think that is wildly powerful.
Let's stay on the scientific side
Yeah.
for a bit, because it's been a while myself. Sympathetic, parasympathetic. What are those, and how does frequency influence one or the other or both?
So if you think about it in a chain reaction, okay, the first thing that happens in the chain is that it gets filtered through our subconscious programs.
Mm-hmm.
So these are ingrained neural pathways that drive the automatic responses that we have. Then it moves into the capacity of our nervous system, meaning how much demand, how much responsibility are we able to take on while maintaining our key functions. Think about it as the size of your battery. Then you get to the state of the nervous system, which is the balance between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic state, which would be more equivalent to the charge of your battery.
Okay.
From that element, then you get into the expression of your human intelligence capacities or lack thereof. So that would be clarity, emotional sovereignty, equanimity, creativity, vision, adaptability. Those are the things, right? And if you are not expressing the human intelligence capacities, then you are expressing the symptoms of not having them, right? So if you either have clarity, or the symptom would be mental noise, decision paralysis, things like that. You're either expressing self-trust, or you might be expressing imposter syndrome, second guessing, worrying what other people think. You could be expressing a human intelligence capacity of creativity, or you could be expressing just copying what everyone else is doing, following a clear path. And so all of those, and then you have the capacities of whether you're expressing the capacities or the symptoms. Then you feel your emotions, you think, and you do stuff.
Yes.
And so to realize that all of that stuff is occurring in milliseconds all the time is one, super economically relevant.
Yes.
And
well, I say yes, but that's easy for me to say. I want to just pause. Why is that economically relevant?
So first, it's super economically relevant, and then also that people are spending time managing the symptoms of things that could be fully resolved through this.
What do you mean? How, and maybe to give an example of how someone is managing symptoms instead of fully resolving what could be.
So if you think of that chain, right? So if you're trying to change your behavior, you are at level like the seventh part of that chain reaction. It's a very low leverage place to try to do something, right? So you're trying to stop scrolling on social media. You're trying to go to the gym consistently. You're way down here, operating with willpower, very far downstream of being able to make a change, which is why it's very ineffective and it feels very hard, right? Some people try to cope with their anxiety, right? So EFT tapping, taking psychiatric numbing pharmaceuticals. When you feel anxious, you meditate for 10 minutes, but then the next time something happens, you feel it again, right? So it's a symptom management.
You're masking. You're just putting a Band-Aid on.
Yep. So you're not resolving the root cause. You're just managing. You're finding ways to manage the symptoms.
So let's keep going.
Stop them from keep coming back.
Let's keep going deeper.
Then you move into the next level, which is emerging popular one, which is trying to improve the state of your nervous system, which is the third layer of this process, right? So that could be cold plunging, sleeping, biohacking, meditating, yoga, things like that, where the objective is to shift the state of your nervous system temporarily, right? But then when you leave the cold plunge and you go to work, then you get stressed out again, right? When you leave the meditation and then you enter your office and you're in a meeting that you lose clear thinking. When you go to the meditation retreat for 7 days and you feel good, but then you come back and on Monday morning you're back to where you started, right? So it's you're getting it at the shifting the nervous system state, and those popular techniques right now. What you're doing is you're creating a temporary shift in your state, which does provide many short-term benefits, but very clear that the benefits fade and do not provide long-term structural change. So as we keep working up, and where we get to the point is that the true solution is to shift the automatic neural pathways in our brain that then drive the capacity of our nervous system, the state of our nervous system, and downstream our emotions, behaviors, and action, or behaviors and things like that. And so the process is very proven in neuroscience. It's very well understood about how a dominant neural pathway arrives and how it gets there. It gets there through repeated activation of the pathway. So that means direct being told, right? You're being told, working, don't be in a band. You're not going to succeed in a band. Do something responsible, right? And then indirectly, you see evidence of that, and then you try to play in a band, and you're not going anywhere, and it confirms to you, yeah, I should go study science, right? And so then it starts to feel like a fact over time that artistic people is not a good career path. I should do something responsible, even though maybe you feel super passionate about it, right? So that's just one example, but then imagine thousands of those get installed. It gets installed through repetition. And it's proven in neuroscience that the what we can do is through the exact same process of repetition, we can install a more dominant neural pathway that occurs automatically.
Is this what is known as neuroplasticity, I would assume?
Neuroplasticity is the innate capability for our brain to rewire.
Okay, gotcha. Well, as you're going through those examples, I'll be the first one to step up and say, I've tried them all.
Yeah, I get it.
I've done the therapy. I've done the coaching. I've done, we'll say, psychedelical experiences to try to resolve some issues within. But what I was finding is every single time a stressful situation would come back up, I'd be back in the same exact place.
Long regression.
Doing the exact same thing. And recently had an experience to where I have been applying what you were writing about in the frequency error and also through the ENCODED process, that I caught myself regressing but didn't completely fall. Like it was a new sense of awareness that I had never experienced before. And this was involving my wife and my kids. Mm-hmm. And through the repetition of writing, I am an honorable warrior committed to love. I'm like, wait a minute. This is not how an honorable warrior who is committed to love chooses to behave. Because before I was always trying to change the behavior and not going further and further and deeper within to look at what you're calling here frequency. So I think too about yourself, how you open up this conversation. Like you used to go and get on stage or 500 people you mentioned, and you've got this sweaty palms and this fight or flight. Is that parasympathetic or sympathetic? Sympathetic kicking in. As you have gone through this yourself and now have guided hundreds of others, thousands of others. That's why I'm so excited about this book, because now you're bringing a whole new perspective to millions. And when you look at why this book and why now, how would you answer that?
The structure of how society works is collapsing. And so in 1990, people could reliably follow the path they were given and live a good life, right? Conditions didn't change that much. Follow the script, climb the corporate ladder houses were affordable, have a family, and you could reliably follow the script and live a good life. Mm-hmm. And I think that many people are recognizing right now that is no longer the case.
Yeah.
That if you are following the script and you are dissatisfied with the trajectory of your life for any reason, that this is the reason why. And so I think that is...
which is at a subconscious level, correct? The programs?
I mean, just consider why does someone follow the script instead of doing what they want to do? Because of the subconscious programs.
Yes.
Right? How do you get to a level that this is what I'm supposed to do?
Right.
It's a subconscious program.
Yes.
Right? Like the only thing that you're supposed to do is whatever you want to do.
Right.
Right? And so if you are doing something that someone else told you to do, then that is by design a subconscious program.
Yes.
Right? And it's not that just someone gave you advice and told you to do it. It's been ingrained in your mind since you were a child.
Right.
Right? All the way through, continued to be reinforced even more aggressively through social media today. And so one of the big...
how does social media play into that idea of reinforcement?
Social media is the rapid scale and reinforcement of subconscious programs. That's what it is. And the more you hear Alex Hormozy say that you have to work 16 hours a day, the more it feels like a fact that that's what you need to do in order to be successful.
Can we get personal with you?
Sure.
A little bit? Because you bring up Alex Hormozy and that idea of hustle culture. I lived it.
Same here.
You lived it. It's like someone watching this right now or listening to this is probably living it. And I know one of the things that you were operating off of that you'd shared in our original conversation, and it just hit me, it resonated. Your belief was, I have to suffer to succeed. And I used to believe the same thing myself. And as a result of the belief I have to suffer to succeed, I mean, how did that show up in other areas? Like, A, how did it show up? And then B, how did working on your frequency change that for you?
So, that some people confuse what a belief is, right? So, people think that if I just think something different, then I believe something different. But at the level of this, it is an ingrained neural pathway in your brain that occurs automatically before you think. And so, the trying to consciously shift and say I don't need to suffer to be successful is not going to change this.
Mantras,
right?
maybe?
Right? So that type of stuff isn't going to shift where this is at because it's an automatic program occurring in your brain. It's the most dominant one. And so what happens is that when these programs run, it leads to what is known as confirmation bias, that you see more of the things that you already believe, and your brain omits evidence that contradicts the things that you believe. And so if you have that belief and then you see somebody else out there that has managed to not suffer to be successful, your brain will say that person's a scam artist, that's not true, and they will continue to default and ignore the evidence that it's possible to be somewhere else.
I think that is so fascinating because you're talking about confirmation bias, but on the flip side of the spectrum, coming back and thinking about frequency, where I've heard it framed this way, where your attention goes, energy flows, it's focus, attention, reticular activating system. Coming back to the neuroscience with this and focus and attention and subconscious, on the flip side of confirmation bias, you could then start to focus and start seeing a new perspective, start seeing new things by working on your frequency. Am I understanding that correctly? So instead of focusing on, they're successful, but they're not suffering, then you're like, well, they're fake, they're a fraud, they're a scam artist. That can't be real because you're seeing it from only your programmed perspective versus saying, you know what, I don't have to suffer to succeed.
I mean, to create clarity for the audience, it is not about focusing on something different.
Okay, so that's what I'm trying to draw the connection here.
At the fundamental level, we must create a more dominant neural pathway in our brain that happens automatically. It takes on average 62 days of training in order to develop a new neural pathway. So if you're just like, I'm just going to focus on more opportunity, you might feel good for a couple of hours, maybe, but you will regress back to the programs that are installed. And so there's a lot of misunderstanding that I'm trying to create clarity around, because just focusing on something, just listening to this podcast and having a new perspective and saying, okay, now I'm going to focus on more opportunities, it's not enough.
And that's what I was curious, because I'm trying to clear up some of these misunderstandings for others as well as for myself. And when we look at the idea of frequency scientifically, we've looked at it, the research and the book has chock full. How can one begin to benchmark or measure where they are today? Because you mentioned these human intelligence capacities. I want to look at those human intelligence capacities. Is that the opportunity here?
So at some point, I want to cover the existing evidence of the economic value and relevance. So at some point, let's go there. At some point, let's cover all 12 of the intelligence capacities. And then at the beginning, to be able to quantify where you are, we have a 6-stage maturity model called a frequency map, and there's 6 different tiers there. And at the most fundamental level, if you have not considered these ideas before, you are likely in tier 1, which is the starting point. And we've gone through the tiers before, so we don't need to cover that again. But there's an easy way to sort of map yourself, either self-assessed, but I will say that when people self-assess, they typically score themselves 1 or 2 levels higher than they actually are. And so, the ENCODED system will be able to do that for you in 45 to 90 minutes. That gives you a clear sense about where you are. And I think launching today, there is a distribution so you can see where you fall against all the other people that have done it.
Interesting. So I want to come back to the economic side of things, as you were pointing out. Where's the implications here?
So let's go to some of the places that are so economically obvious. Okay. The first one would be decision making. Okay, so imagine that you are the CEO of a 100-person company. You are the leader of your family with your spouse and your children, right? Maybe you are the leader of your community or an organization or a team that you lead, like all of these different things. Or you're just living your personal life. How many decisions do you make every day? How many would you consider important decisions? 10, like for somebody operating at a high level, it could be 100. Right. So you're making 100 decisions. Now, what is the most important thing related to decision quality? What is the number one variable that drives the quality of decisions measured by the satisfaction or regret of decisions after you make them?
Tell me.
I think that most people would think it's how much information you had.
Correct. Give me more information.
How many advisors you consulted, how much time you took to do an analysis of it.
Yeah.
The scientific evidence is very clear that the number one driver of decision quality is the internal state of the decision maker at the time they make the decision.
So it's interesting, as you asked the question, my initial thought was as you answered, but then as you were starting your answer of, okay, I need more information. I need to go talk to more people. If I just got one more detail, then I can make the decision. Versus as you were answering, I knew, okay, because as of my own experience here, I trust myself.
It's the quality of the inner state of the person at the time they make the decision. So if you take 2 of the exact same people in the exact same life situations, and one person is constantly in a rush, worried about what other people think, feeling anxious and second-guessing themselves, and another person is calm, clear, not worried about what others think, focused on their vision and things like that, and you stack that up over 100 decisions a day, and then you look at it at a week, a month, a year, 5 years, 10 years, they will go in totally different directions in terms of the quality and impact, the quality of their life, the quality of their decisions, the impact of their business, the impact they have on society and other people. And so that is the most obvious economically consequential connection between, because frequency is the structural shift of the baseline of your operating state. That's what it is. And so when we operate at that state consistently, our decisions improve. They get faster. They get clearer. And that is demonstrated all through the connection between neuroscience, nervous system research, and performance research. There's a very clear chain of that people that have a more powerful nervous system, regulate their emotions more effectively, think more clearly, trust themselves more, are more creative, perform better in athletic endeavors, handle stress more effectively. So all of that is already proven, right? And those are the inputs to high quality decisions, and even the connection of decision making has been made as well. And so that's just one that's very obvious, right? So when you have a million amounts of information, and everybody has access to about the same level of information aside from proprietary data and things like that, then what becomes the scarce advantage? It actually becomes the quality of your state when you make the decisions. It's the quality of the decider.
Well, and I think that's where, if I look back over my own life, when I have been fearful, anxious, the decisions that I've made, like, you mentioned chaos versus calm, clarity, uncertainty. When I am clear and I'm clear within, the decisions and the ability to make a decision is so much easier.
Just like, duh.
And it's a knowing. And that, I think that's the thing. It's a knowing. It's like, it's just inevitable at that point.
And the thing is that is the natural state of how a human being operates. That is how we are all meant to operate.
Yes.
And the fact is that we have just been given and installed these programs that block us from our natural operating capacity.
So let's talk about how we were meant to operate this human intelligence capacities.
I want to do one more economics.
Well, let's go back to the economics.
Okay. So let's go into another area that we'll call creativity. Okay. So in a world where AI can make 1,000 average blogs instantly, it can make 1,000 average movies instantly, it can make 1,000 average social media posts instantly, it could write 1,000 average books, it could do a infinite amount of average stuff. Okay, so then what becomes super valuable? Things that are new, creative, innovative, different, connect with people. That those become incredibly premium when you have all this commodity, easy work. Okay, so we're going to call that creativity.
Okay,
creativity in the way that it matters most in this new economic era is coming up with fundamentally new ideas, not making new combinations of existing ideas, which artificial intelligence will be very good at making new combinations of existing ideas.
Right.
But fundamentally, the technology cannot come up with a new idea. It is predicting based on all the things that it's been taught in the past. So It cannot come up with a fundamentally new idea. I know that because I wrote this book with a bunch of new ideas, and AI was not helpful at all.
Yes.
So, so creativity, right? What is the number one driver of a team or organization's creativity?
Tell me.
The ability for the leader to make everyone feel safe. And so when everybody feels safe, then they are not afraid of failing. They're not afraid of judgment, and their creativity goes further. So how does a leader make their team feel safe? The first step is to feel safe within yourself.
Well, it's like the idea, and it was funny. I was working with a bunch of 7th and 8th graders about a week ago doing career day. And I just showed up. I didn't have an agenda. And I was like, what do you guys want to learn about entrepreneurship, leadership, being a founder? And some kid was like, I want to talk about leadership. And I don't know what it was. I was like, that's what we're going to talk about today. And it was just, it resonated, it clicked. And one of the things that I was going through some just different examples, and it really came back to leading yourself. And the kids were resonating with that idea because I was like, if you're not leading yourself, then someone else is going to lead you, and they're probably going to lead you to not where you want to go. And what I thought was so fascinating is out of about 150 students, I had asked them, how many of you believe that you're a leader today? And I had 2 kids raised their hand. They were both girls, and it was interesting. They were different classes. They were sitting in the exact same seat in different classes, and I was like, that was interesting. And as I was going through the day, I was using it as an example. I go, I'm looking out at this room, and I see every single one of you as a leader. And you are the founder. You are the CEO of You Inc. Mm-hmm. You lead yourself. So as you're talking about this, it just recently came up in a conversation about a week or two ago with all these kids about leadership and creating it. And that was the thing. It's like these kids felt so safe within 30 minutes. They were able to express themselves in completely new. I had one kid come up to me and was like, I've started this AI web design shop. He's like, can we have a conversation? I was like, just go find me online. Mm-hmm. Sure enough, he reached out, he found me. And I'm like, this is so cool to see these kids and the opportunities that I'm thinking that they're growing up. Yeah. And it's going to come back to their human capacities. And you're talking about creativity.
So, two very clear things: decision-making and creativity. Now, evaluate and look at the average organization and how they operate today. They are in a rush. They are obsessed with external metrics over impact. They sit in Zoom meetings all the time, and everybody is afraid that they're going to lose their job, and nobody is being innovative or taking risks because of the culture in an organization. And so the cultures of the past are systematically suppressing the things that matter the most in this next sector. The most valuable economic things that companies can harness are being suppressed by the cultures of their, what we call the frequency. It's more than the culture.
Yes.
Of their organizations.
So just so I understand, we all have our own individual frequencies, but now you're bringing this into an economical perspective within an organization, a culture. Is there a frequency of the culture? Like a combined, when you bring a group of people together on a team?
There's a frequency of an individual.
Okay.
We're in a room right now there's a resonant frequency of this room.
Yes.
You put a company together, whether it's in an office or on Slack, over time that company will assimilate to a frequency. The world operates at a specific frequency, and so you put a group of people together, they will eventually assimilate to the same frequency.
Gotcha.
So, and the way that it works in organizations is that generally the leader will set the frequency, and then everyone over time will assimilate to it. And so there's an example here. So imagine that you ended up joining a company as a senior manager, right? And before you joined the company, you slept great. You were never stressed. You were very creative. You were just living an enjoyable life, right? And you joined this company because they offered you an extra $50,000 a year. So now you're in this company and you've been there for 6 months, and now you're not sleeping right. You're working all the time. You're super stressed out. You're second guessing yourself. You're not feeling creative. Why is that? Because you've introduced yourself into a place where you are beginning to assimilate to the frequency. Now, frequency is contagious, and this is proven by science as well. It's called nervous system co-regulation. And so there's one, philosophical thing, which is like, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Why is that? It's because their nervous systems are contagious, and their frequency is contagious. The beliefs that they hold, right? Do they need to? Are we in a rush? Are we competing? Like, over time, if the leaders believe that, then you will also believe that, or you will leave.
Yes.
It's like there's no in between. You either assimilate or you say, I do not believe in these things. I must leave.
Right.
And so, or you assimilate to it. So nervous system co-regulation is that the nervous systems of people in a physical or digital environment will sync with each other.
Yes.
And so that is one of the most powerful insights for leadership, because the number one way that you increase the capacity of your team or organization is through the capacity of your own nervous system. And so that becomes, and I do believe that it'll be the number one biometric marker that people use for. It'll be like IQ, like the capacity of your nervous system. It's not. You're not filling out a personality test. It's not subjective at all. It can be physiologically measured. It will be more. It'll be the equivalent of how people measured IQ 20 years ago.
Well, can we use you as an example of what you've shared with me about these measurements? Because you've talked about like heart rate variability as a measurement here.
Yeah, I think like the coolest thing is that all of this can be measured.
Yes.
Right. And at that and that it so that there's people think this mystical frequency thing, oh, it's my vibe, it's a subjective like thing. It's like, no, actually, like you can measure this within your nervous system. You can measure this within the frequency distribution of your brain waves. You can measure this as a proxy of this architecture of your sleep, what different stages of sleep you're in. You can measure this in your galvanic skin response, right? So there's a variety of what I'll call proxy measurements that as you increase your frequency, there's correlated increases in these proxy measurements. And over time, there will be a direct measurement of the capacity of your nervous system.
So we've talked about the science behind the frequency error. We've talked about some of the economic impacts. We've talked about the ability to measure this. I'm extremely fascinated from a business and a culture standpoint, like the idea of how the leader and their frequency is going to directly influence that of the team, yet alone the organization, both in a physical space as well as a digital space. Let's come back to the human capacities. Because if we're looking now for the opportunities, and once again, to your point, you can be watching this or listening to this and gain a new perspective, but that's not going to change anything. What are these human capacities that we should be aware of here in this new age of AI?
So
the frequency error.
Yeah, we'll go through the 12 in a second. So for the past 10 years, many people have viewed this as emotional intelligence, as this X factor of why do leaders get more. What's this X factor that they have? What are they doing that the other people aren't doing? And it's been clear that emotional intelligence is something that people have pointed to as the reason why, right? And so when you look at emotional intelligence is a cognitive capacity. So it's a skill that you learn combined with behaviors that you take, and it is learned and trained below the nervous system level.
Yes.
And so what I'm providing here is that it's like a much more expanded definition of something that people have been pointing to, but with a lot more precision and depth. And so when we think about the human intelligence capacities, there are 12 of them.
Well, I want to pause before we get into them, because as you're going through these different intelligence, you mentioned EQ, so we have emotional intelligence. You mentioned IQ before as a measurement, intellectual capacity. Another one that I have studied up on is AQ, so adaptability, intelligence. As you're going through this, I can't help but think, as to your point, this is like FQ. It's like frequency intelligence. Is that a fair frame on this?
Frequency is the source of the expression of those capacities.
Okay, so that's once again, I'm wanting to get very, very clear for those watching and listening, but also for myself of, okay, so this is the source. So this is, we're going all the way down to like the base. Like this is
frequency is the soil.
Okay.
And the, expressing as an adaptable human is the branch.
Got it.
And building a thriving organization or family is the fruit.
There you go. So, yes.
It is the most foundational thing that a human can train to positively impact everything in their life. And more science to be shown, but I have a pretty strong feeling that it's also on longevity, on health, on those types of elements as well.
Your analogy of soil, I think, is important because that's something that I can understand. When you plant in good soil, you'll get a good tree. Mm-hmm. When you get a good tree, you're going to get good fruit. But if the soil is not optimized or optimal, then the tree might suffer. If the tree is suffering, then the fruit might not be as good as it could be. So that's a really good analogy. Let's go back to these human capacities.
Yeah.
What are they?
So there are 12 human intelligence capacities. They work in clusters of 3, and they work up as if in order to consistently achieve the next level, you must have a foundational capacity and expression of the previous level.
Okay.
So the level 1 is called foundation, mm-hmm. and it involves clarity, emotional sovereignty, and equanimity. And so clarity is the cognitive capacity to be able to filter infinite information and figure out what matters. And so it is a different operation than trying to collect a bunch of information. It's actually the ability to subtract.
Okay.
And so in the previous economic era, when information was scarce, the most important thing was to understand all the information that was available. When information is infinite, if you're trying to understand all the information, it actually works against you because it creates cognitive load.
Yes.
So it is proven that more options and more information actually decreases decision quality because it creates cognitive load. You have too many things to consider that decreases the quality of the decision-making process. And so when information becomes infinite, that advantage inverts and it becomes actually a disadvantage. So the ability to have clarity is to be able to look at all the stuff, say all these things don't matter, this thing matters right now. And it is a capacity that is expressed before you start thinking, mm-hmm. right? So it's happening before you're actually looking at the information. And so when you think about how this is economically consequential, you can look at the 1,000-person company today. They have all the information, all the AI, tons of competent, intelligent people, and nobody knows what matters.
Because they're working at a super high cognitive load, and they can't make a decision.
They have all the information and no clarity.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
So that ability to be able to say, all these things don't matter, this matters to us, this is where we're going, that is now a premium capacity. It's hard for people to wrap their head around it because it is almost the exact opposite of the way that it's been treated in the past.
Well, let me perhaps clarify this and repeat this back. When we did not have an abundance of information, the economic opportunity was to go acquire more information. Mm-hmm. When we have an abundance of information, the economic opportunity is not addition, but it's subtraction.
Yeah. And not a logical analysis of subtraction.
Okay.
A element of subtraction that is happening automatically because of the mode that your brain is operating in before you start doing or thinking anything.
Yes.
So that's a huge element, right? So clarity. Then we have emotional sovereignty, which is not emotional intelligence. It is not emotional suppression. It is the ability to not be governed by your emotions, meaning that as we continue to update our subconscious programs, we achieve an emotional stability that leads to basically feeling calm and having our key functions in perpetuity. There's no emotional there's no emotional reactivity or waves. And when we have sovereignty over our emotions, meaning that we understand that our emotions are created through our subconscious programs, And through the work of our subconscious programs, we then have full sovereignty over our emotions, that we do not have this up and down of emotions, and emotions never cloud our ability to think clearly, trust ourselves, or anything like that.
That connects back to something I said very early on in our conversation, was about the roller coaster. And I use the roller coaster as a personal analogy because my wife and I, who've been now married for 20 years, has told me over the years, being married to you has felt like a roller coaster. And a lot of it, back to your point of leadership, comes back to focusing on leading myself, focusing on my own frequency, and being able to have more of an even kill with my own emotional sovereignty.
And so many people may currently believe that this is impossible. However, I will invite you to consider the fact that it is very possible for everyone.
Yes.
Okay? That you never feel anxiety. It's not like you feel anxiety and then you try to stop it. The feeling never, it doesn't exist. You never feel anxiety. You never feel guilt. You never feel frustrated. You never feel stressed. You never feel like you're in a rush. That is emotional sovereignty. And when you have that level of emotional sovereignty, it allows you to think and operate clearly all the time.
Yeah.
Because the emotions, aka the state of our nervous system, which then just is our emotions are just an expression.
Yes.
That is what actually gets in the way of us performing at a high level consistently with all our amazing, powerful functions. Okay, and then the last part of foundation is equanimity, meaning to stay stable and clear amongst uncertainty, pressure, change, or things like that. To not have external pressure or circumstances dictate the way that you feel. Now, this is very different because basically everyone has been conditioned, especially in the 90s, that what happens outside of me is based on how I feel. If good things happen, I feel good. If bad things happen, I feel bad, right? Which was a relatively reliable strategy when things didn't change that much.
Correct.
And you could fill the gap through achieving and producing and working harder and suppressing your emotions, which is what many people did for the past 30 years. The thing that's changed is that things are changing very fast now.
Yes.
And so if you are dependent on external conditions to feel in a certain way, you will be at the mercy of your emotions being driven outside of you in what would be like an emotional roller coaster. So when we achieve these 3 human intelligence capacities, what it does is it allows us to see clearly all the time, which is a massively underrated.
I was about to say.
Massively underrated thing. Imagine driving your car and only being able to see 30% of the time.
Right. Well, and back to your point on if you're reliant or have been reliant on the external, whether that's for validation, attention, all of these different things that we're seeking, achievement, whatever that is. And I have been there myself. Whenever I was achieving, I felt great. Whenever I was on stage in front of 1,000 people, I got the applause. It felt amazing. And then I'd go back to my hotel room and I'd be like, okay, here I am.
Yeah.
Or, something is posted on social media and it goes quote unquote viral. That's amazing. And then it's like someone says something nasty and you're like, oh, but that's all external. Am I understanding this correctly as an example here?
It can show up from that angle. It can show up from just being uncertain.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know where we're going, right? And then so in that case, then you feel bad, right?
Right.
It's really your nervous system is adjusting to that, and it prevents the ability for you to see clearly. That's at the most fundamental level. Having those three things in place allow you to see clearly all the time.
Yeah. So that creates the foundation.
That is the foundation. The next level up is called the navigation capacities, which are self-trust, discernment, and intuition. And what these capacities allow you to do is they allow you to navigate your life as the leader of your life. And so once you can see clearly, then it's if I know what's right for me, can I trust myself?
Right.
Right. So the ability of self-trust, right? The symptoms that people might feel when they do not have a full foundation of self-trust are things like imposter syndrome, second guessing, having to call 5 people to try to figure out what you should do, right? Wondering, being not sure, like trying to stop doing something but still doing it, right? That's also a component of self-trust called self-efficacy. So we have self-trust, the ability that once I see clearly, can I go in that direction? The next one is discernment. And discernment is being able to distinguish what is right for me versus what is just right in general, right? And so the way to explain this one is that you can ask AI, what should I do, right? But AI will not be able to give you the answer of what is right for you in that exact moment with your family, your values, your business, where you want to go. It will not be able to. It will give you the average answer from average people that happened in the past.
Yes.
So the what it's doing is giving you a generalized average answer, not the answer for you, right? And so if we are deferring our discernment to AI, we will regress to an average life and just be in the noise.
Yeah.
And so discernment becomes a massively important thing. And what discernment is at its fundamental level is to be able to look at the information, be able to have the clarity to sort through it, and to say these 3 things matter, but these parts of it were different. So these things are the things that matter, but I'm going to apply it to my situation, and now I'm going to make my own decision. So it's this ability to filter and process, apply it to the situation, and then make your own decision.
So discernment.
Discernment, and then you have intuition. And intuition is a relatively misunderstood concept, but at its fundamental level, what it's happening is that our subconscious mind stores all of these memories, emotional experiences, all this different stuff, basically our entire life experience that is not consciously accessible.
Yeah.
And what happens is that as we develop this capacity, we develop the capacity to access the intuition more reliably. And from a navigation perspective, there's been plenty of studies with firefighters and athletes and other high-pressure, fast situations that the ability to access intuition is the number one driver to making those decisions, that it's happening at a level that is not consciously thought about. It happens before you start thinking. And so being able to access that capacity, and the reason that AI can't replicate it is because that database is in you.
Yes.
Right? It's not out there. All of your life experience, your emotional stuff, that only is accessed when you have built this capacity to access it consistently. So then it's like, I access it, and can I trust it? Which then, like, I'm sort of as we go through this, I'm just like, I'm a living product of this, right? I access my intuition and what we'll get to the next part about vision relative to ENCODED. And then I had the self-trust to follow it. And now here we are.
Well, and I think that, and this comes back to economical impact. Had you not done that, we wouldn't be here having this conversation. Even to the point to when I remember you, and we got to give some context and maybe provide a little more clarity. The whole reason that we're sitting here right now is because you had posted something on LinkedIn. And I sent you this message, and I was like, hey, do you want to talk about that? And it was just one of these moments where, like, let's just see where this goes. And the more that I find myself doing that, the more amazing experiences that unfold. And I like the way that you're framing this to where you have these 12 human intelligence capacities. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're through 6 of them so far.
And so we've got the first 3, which are the foundation. The next 3 are navigation, direction. Let's go to the following 3 and build upon that.
Right. And then just see how they build on each other, right? If you don't see clearly and you are in emotional, an emotional roller coaster, it is very difficult, if not impossible, to trust yourself all the time, right? So see how they build. So after navigation, we move into generative, which is at that level. Now you're in real powerful creation. Okay. Which are the three probably highly valuable capacities, especially with where we are with AI, which are creativity, deep human connection, and vision. And so creativity, like we talked about in the way that it matters most right now, is coming up with fundamentally new ideas that have not happened before, which a lot of that comes down to reducing the fear of judgment.
Yes.
And so, and that fear of judgment is a variety of subconscious programs. Right?
Sure.
So reducing the fear of judgment so that you can arrive at fully new ideas. So that one is super important. Part of that, like the way that I got to some of these new ideas, was part accessing my intuition and part challenging the things that experts in the field take for granted.
Right.
So, so that is a huge element, right? I don't view myself as a biohacking expert, right?
Well, this comes back to what you said earlier when we were talking about the research. You were like, we're pulling research from all of these different domains and connecting dots that have not been connected before.
Yeah. And so we have creativity, right? When high volume, competent execution is the norm, creative work becomes the super premium. We have deep human connection. And deep human connection is relatively misunderstood. People might think, oh, so deep human connection means we need more in real life experiences, right? Go to a tech trade show and tell me that there's any deep human connection there. It's the most transactional thing ever. Right? So
yeah, I don't like that.
So when we think about what does deep human connection actually mean, there are two layers of relationships. There is the transactional layer, which is information delivery, keeping in touch, following up, being top of mind, right? Basically everything that a sales professional has done, most of their stuff is based on that layer. That layer can be fully automated with artificial intelligence and do it 100 times better than a human, right? So the transactional layer is being automated. So we have the deep layer of human connection, which is trust, safety, capability expansion, long-term relationships. And the way that deep human connection is created at a physiological level is through nervous system co-regulation. So somebody's nervous system is deciding for them, how much do I trust this person through what your nervous system is communicating. And so the way that we get to a deep level of human connection is by upgrading our frequency and expanding the capacity of our nervous system so that people feel safe around us, people trust us because we have the right intentions and they can feel it, right? So that level of human connection will become a super premium when transactional stuff gets automated. And the reality is, if you think about salespeople, advisors, other things like that their companies push them to do all the things that are not deep human connection.
And that comes back to what we were discussing earlier around leadership and creativity and the connection here. So I just wanted to draw that back to our previous point, or the previous points you were making, that creativity comes down to safety.
In many ways, yeah. Then we have the final part of generative, which is vision. And vision is not creating a vision board. Okay, it's not thinking about what do I want to make, right? Vision is seeing a potential future that doesn't exist right now. And what happens is that we build the capacity of our nervous system to allocate resources to our prefrontal cortex that allows these visions to happen. And so we don't try to have visions. We don't sit down and meditate to visualize. We create the capacity so that visions land.
Yes.
And so we have vision, which is seeing a future that doesn't exist right now.
And then how does that connect? Well, back to clarity. It's the foundation. It's hard to have that vision without having the clarity from the foundation.
What will happen at the higher levels is it may not be that you never access them, but it's incredibly inconsistent.
Okay.
Right. So like 5 years ago, I had a vision for my business once a year.
Yeah.
Right. And even then, only half the time did I trust myself enough to follow that vision.
Sure.
Right. So like, it's not that you don't access them at all. It's just that it shows up almost sometimes not at all or inconsistent.
Yeah.
So those are the first 3 levels of the human intelligence capacities. And then the final level is what we call integration, or what I like to view it as is expressive. And so what that means is that when these capacities at the lower levels are fully online, that we just express with these final capacities. So they're not skills that we learn. It's just how we show up. So the way I like to say it is that that a professional athlete is a professional athlete because they've built capacities that allow them to just show up as a professional athlete. Strength, discipline, endurance, hand-eye coordination. So they have all these underlying athletic capacities that then allow them to just show up as a professional athlete.
Right.
So the same thing is happening here, where the 4th level is expressive, which includes adaptability, autonomy, and intentionality. For adaptability, people say adaptability quotient, right? Just be adaptable, right? That adaptability is simply how you express yourself when you trust yourself, when you see clearly, when you have a vision for where the world is going. Then you just are automatically adaptable. Just you're not trying, you're not learning a skill, you're just doing it. And what adaptability is it's not resilience. Resilience means that when I fall off track, I can get back on track. And what adaptability means is that falling off track is part of it.
Right.
Right. I'm not disrupted in the first place. It's part of the game. Right. So if we think about what what a majority of people have been trained to do up until this point is to follow a map.
Yes.
Somebody gave me a map and I'm going to take, in Google Maps, and it's telling me where to turn. Right. And because the terrain and the economy and life is changing so much more quickly now, that it's more like we're in a boat and we need a compass. There's no clear map of where to go, and so we need to be able to use our compass to be adaptable.
Well, that reminds me of, as a kid growing up in the 80s playing Oregon Trail. It's like, it was a game, but I've thought about that. Like, what would it have been like to go out west or to come from Europe to the Americas? There's no map. There's no plan. You're just one step ahead. So the idea of adaptability it's resonating.
Yeah. And so people that have certain subconscious programs can learn every skill in the book. They can read everything about adaptability and they will not be adaptable.
Yes.
And the reason is because adaptability is to see change as a opportunity instead of a threat automatically.
Correct. Even as we've been going through our conversation today to launch the frequency error, now that you're bringing this up, I keep asking about opportunities. What are the opportunities? It's just, that's how I continuously am seeing things myself. It's like, well, where are the opportunities in the frequency error?
Yeah. So then we have the last 2, which are autonomy. So autonomy is the expression of the underlying capacities where people will say, oh, that person's acting with agency, right? It's just like, I fully act from myself, right?
Oh.
And some people would say that it's irresponsible, right, to not ask other people for advice, right? But imagine that you are the explorer, right? You are leading the way, and then everyone else is behind you.
Right.
So who's going to give you advice about where to go?
Yes.
That you need to build the capacity.
But you brought up a very good point before that we have to come back to is I know a lot of people now are going to AI and asking AI for advice. To your point, all of that advice is based upon past experience that is the average of.
Super generalized.
Yes. So that's something just to be mindful of. If you think, well, I'm not going to ask people for advice. I'm going to go ask AI. But AI doesn't have the database that you have based upon your past experiences for your unique individual self.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not to say that you can't use AI to evaluate decisions.
Sure.
But it's different to evaluate this, use it as a thinking partner to evaluate a decision versus say, what should I do? And then just do whatever it says.
Well, and I think that now, so we're going to connect back to one of the other levels, which is where discernment comes back into play.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to draw for those watching and listening how all of these A's stack and how they all connect and build upon one another.
And then the last one we have is intentionality, which means designing every part of your life intentionally based around the things that you believe, the things that you care about, things like that. So the location that you live, the team that you work on, the communities that you do, how you make money, where you find creative elements, what type of food you eat, how you travel, like all the different areas of your life. And this is not a rich people are more intentional than not. Right. So this is not it's not a money economic conversation. Sure, having a baseline set of economics allows you to be more intentional. Maybe that's not even, I'm not even sure that that's true. So intentionality is designing every area of your life. So I'll give you an example, right? At the moment, there's probably millions, maybe tens of millions of people out there that literally are at this moment saying, I hate my job.
Yeah.
Right. An intentional person that would immediately leave. Immediately. Right. So if you don't have these underlying, there's another 10 million people that say, I hate my relationship. Right. So there's another. So if you were an intentional person, you would recognize that immediately and leave because you have the underlying capacities of knowing what's right for you, discernment, self-trust, and things like that. So that's just how it's expressed in some ways.
Let's test that because maybe you're watching this right now, maybe you're listening to this right now, and that is you. You're in that place that you hate your job. You're in a relationship that is not good for you.
Because of your job, you're living in a city you don't like.
I was about to say, you're right here, man. We're on the same page because I was like, and then you're in a place that is no longer serving you. And then the question, I guess all of this now comes, what do they do? Mm-hmm. Where does someone can take what you have written in the frequency error? Where do they go next?
So first, let's start with what the traditional advice would be for this person, right? It would be go to a meditation retreat and try to cope with the stress of being at a job that you don't like that's stressing you out, right? Go to a relationship counseling, get a relationship coach to try to manage this relationship that you think isn't right for you, right? And then just buy a TV or something so that you're more happy in the space that you are because you need the job and you don't have enough money and you might not be able to get another one, so you got to just manage this life that you don't like, right? So that's like the traditional advice is to basically cope with the stuff that you have.
Sure.
And so they're all basically behavioral level changes.
Right.
So a different path is to focus on developing your frequency, and at the beginning to just have the element of clarity, right?
Yes.
That's the one that shows up first. Emotional sovereignty and other ones take a while to develop.
The foundation.
Just not even just clarity.
Sure.
Right?
Okay. So one of the three.
Emotional sovereignty can take a minute to develop fully. So just have clarity, and just to be like I want to move to a different city, right? Okay. So now you're somewhere, right? And then to start to develop the self-trust that I'll figure it out. Like, yeah, I can do that. And then all of a sudden, when you start to develop these underlying capacities that are built through our frequency, our identity, beliefs, and intentions, our subconscious foundation, that your behavior naturally gravitates to doing those things. And so it's like it's a different approach to life, and most people are looking for like a quick solution. Like, what do I do? And the reality is that nobody knows what's right for you except for you. The traditional advice that you hear on, like, if I tell you to leave your relationship, how the fuck do I know? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like how do I know? And so it's like, it's the way is to develop the capacity so that you know what's right for you, so that you can see it clearly.
And when you talk about developing the capacity, that comes back to frequency, the frequency error, and training your frequency. Just like, to use your example before, we train our muscles.
Exactly. Yeah. And you decide that you want to get fit, right? You're 25, you haven't been to the gym before in your entire life, right?
Right.
Okay. And then the first day you walk into the gym, you're like, whoa, these people are really strong, right? And I'm not, right? And then in 30 days, you're at the gym and you're like, I'm getting stronger, right? I can do what those, if I follow my plan and I continue to do this, I can do what those people can do.
Correct.
Right? And you're starting to feel more comfortable in the gym. You're starting to understand it. You're starting to feel the benefits, right? It's exactly the same.
Yeah.
A different training target with the exact same, overall methodology.
Sure. So we have covered a lot with the frequency error. We started off with getting just some perspective of the past that has brought us to this point. We have talked about the research behind frequency. We've defined frequency. We've defined what frequency is not. We have looked at how to perhaps measure frequency. You gave some examples of that. We looked at the human intelligence, the capacities with this, and where there are opportunities, giving examples. We've talked about what can someone do with this. As we wrap up, where can someone get a copy of the frequency error?
So you can pick up the Frequency Error book on Amazon. It's available digital, hardcover, soft cover. And then there was one other topic that I wanted to cover.
Sure.
And we kind of got there, but I feel like to close it out, it's a critical shift in mindset. Okay.
What do you mean by that?
So this is what I want to share.
Okay.
Okay. So that if you buy into the idea that knowledge is no longer scarce and the premium on it is coming down, and you buy into that idea, and you can choose whether you buy into that it's going to the frequency era or something else. That's up to you. That you will recognize that the primary method of development needs to change. If knowledge is no longer that valuable.
What do you mean by that? The primary method of development? What type of development?
If knowledge is no longer that valuable, then learning is no longer the primary method of development.
Okay.
Accumulating information is no longer as useful as it used to be, right? It's not to say that it's not valuable at all. What I'm saying is that it's not the primary method of development anymore. And so when we go through these economic shifts, that the primary method of development that people basically think is the only way to develop because of how the economic structure has been built around it, that changes, right? So in the industrial era, people went to vocational schools. They trained their muscles, the ability to manage production, how to use machines, right? They learned those skills. And then when the automation happened, then people started going to college. They started taking courses. They started going to seminars, right?
Yeah.
And because the training target changed, the training target changed from muscles and skilled labor to loading information into your mind, right? Now, when that is shifting, what it means is that the training target needs to change.
Yes.
And so what I'm suggesting to people is that the new training target is the capacity of our nervous system, and that the most effective way, or potentially at this point, the only way that I'm aware of to expand the capacity of our nervous system is to upgrade our subconscious programs, our frequency. And so that training target would shift, and when we expand the capacity of our nervous system, it shifts the state of our nervous system and allows us to express these 12 human intelligence capacities, and then we start thinking and doing and applying all the stuff from there.
Right. So instead of focusing on behavior, we're focusing on frequency, and as a result, the outcome and the output, the behavior changes.
Indeed, yeah. And then what we bring to the learning changes.
Yes.
Right. What we try to learn changes. Why we are deciding that is the thing that we should learn. How we retain it. How we use it.
Right.
Right. And so it's like it's a shift in where to focus. And I think that is such a powerful idea, right, for people to consider. Because it's obvious. Mm-hmm. Like, how many more seminars and keynotes and masterminds do you need to go to realize that you've hit it's a ceiling, mm-hmm. that it's not taking you any further?
Right.
How many more books and podcasts do we need to read to realize that the next book, and then we forget it a week later, right? I hope that this book gives you some new insights, but reading the book alone is not going to change anything.
Listening to this podcast, watching this podcast is not going to change anything.
How many more social media posts saying something like totally meaningless do we need to save and look at to think that it's doing something? And so I think that that it's not that learning doesn't matter. It's that that we've learned so much that at this point now the ability is to figure out how to use what we already have much better, and that's precognitive.
Well, that's application that requires action. We've already know that someone can grab this book on Amazon. What should they do next? They get the book, they read the book. Great.
Yeah.
Then what?
Well, it's pretty interesting because people know, right? Okay, so if I read a book about fitness, if I read a book about professional performance, that I'm not going to be more fit, right? That I actually have to go out and do something afterwards.
Yeah.
To do that, it works in the same way.
Got it.
And so, in order to develop our frequency, and then to be able to access those capacities more reliably or consistently, that we need to train our frequency. And frequency training at its simplest form is building new dominant neural pathways in our mind that permanently shift the state of our nervous system.
Yeah.
And so that is the method. It's like going now that you decided you want to exercise. Now you go to the gym. Frequency training is going to the gym for your nervous system.
Outside of getting the book as an action, as we wrap up, for someone watching or listening, and they're like, okay, I resonate with this. I understand knowledge, the capacity to learn more is shifting. There is a change. I feel it. What's the one thing outside of the book? What could they do next? Simple action that they could just take to think about just getting some clarity.
Let's see. So the ENCODED process is relatively inexpensive, and within 45 to 90 minutes, it takes you through a guided process that most people say it's either the clearest or one of the most clearest I've ever been in my life. Mm-hmm. And so I think, like, whether you want to commit to training for 30 days or however long you want to, that process is super powerful and costs $79. Mm-hmm. And so I'd recommend doing that as an initial step, which is called the frequency mapping process. Within our training system, we recommend doing a frequency mapping every 60 to 90 days, right? Mm-hmm. It's kind of like getting a blood test.
Sure.
Right? You're going to do a train, you're going to apply some methods, and then you're going to get a baseline. You're going to apply some methods and get a baseline. But just as a first step to experience what it feels like, I think that can, it's a reflection and visioning process that I've developed over the past 5 years, and it's been wildly powerful for my life.
So as a recommendation, having gone through that experience myself,
Nice.
It is clear. I have felt more clear, more confident, more grounded, and it's nothing outside of myself. It's all looking within, and taking what you've written about here and putting into action. Mm-hmm. So grab a copy of the book. Step 1. And work to continue to elevate your frequency in the frequency air.
Let's go.
Congrats on the book, buddy.
All right, brother. Good stuff.
Good stuff, man.
Sweet. Yeah.